Well, welcome back to the podcast. I Destroyed My Marriage, Part 3. Okay, before I present today's podcast, I will answer a question from a podcast listener. By the way, if you'd like to send me a question that you'd like me to answer on one of the podcasts, be happy to do it. Email it to me directly at David E. Clarke, that's Clarke with an E on the end, David E. Clarke, PhD at gmail.com. Okay, here's the question, and it's a good one. Can you talk to us about shame? Many sex addicts say they didn't speak up or engage with their betrayed spouse due to shame. Some say you shouldn't shame an addict. What do you think? Well, here's what I think. Shame is at the heart of sexual addiction, but it should not prevent the addict from taking the heat for his sinful actions. In fact, the only way through shame, the way to get rid of shame, is to man up and directly face the terrible pain you have caused your spouse. Now, with God's help, you can do that, not in your own. God's help, you can do it. Hiding behind the excuse of shame, saying to your spouse, don't vent your pain and don't ask questions because you're shaming me, does more damage to your spouse and actually increases your shame and prevents you from recovering. Don't use your shame as a way to protect yourself. The victim must fully vent pain and hurt and all emotions and ask every question she wants to ask, any time she wants to ask them. This will trigger shame in the addict, that's true, but it will be help him actually deal with his spouse's pain head on. And if he does that, he'll be strengthened and the shame will actually diminish. That's how shame goes away, not by avoiding it, but by facing it, feeling it, working through it, helping your spouse heal. Get my book, I Don't Love You Anymore, for my complete description of how to heal. So many folks get hung up, the addict in shame, the victim in terms of lack of forgiveness because they don't follow the right steps. I Don't Love You Anymore covers how to heal from serious marital sin. In fact, you'll find the answers to all of your questions about your marital crisis, no matter what it is, at my website, davideclarkephd.com. That's Clarke with an E on the end, of course. I always say that because for years, 60 years of my life, people have not put the E on the end of Clarke. Anyway. Okay, back to I Destroyed My Marriage, Part 3. Very important section here. It's what not to do in this scenario. Don't do any of these things. This is the title of this podcast. To win back your spouse, you must do the right things. Just as important, you must not do the wrong things. Over the past 30 years in my clinical psychology practice, I've watched spouses make the same common mistakes in their efforts to save their marriages. These mistakes ended up costing them any chance to stay married. As you read these mistakes, many of you will have this response, or in this case, as you hear these mistakes, you'll say, oh no, Dave, I've made some of these mistakes. I've made maybe a lot of them. Does that ruin my chances? No, it doesn't. Most spouses in your situation make some of these mistakes. Look, nobody's perfect, and when you're desperate and stressed out of your mind, you tend to blow it. If you realize and own your mistakes and stop making them and apologize to your wife, you'll be all right. You can still win her back. The spouses who get divorced are those who continue to make these same mistakes. Okay, number one, don't spend time with her or time as a family. Classic and disastrous mistake. Whether you are separated or not at this point, and more on separation coming up in these podcasts, time alone with her is a mistake, a major mistake. Also, time with her and the kids is a mistake. I don't care if she asks for couple or family time. Don't do it. When you spend time with a spouse who is divorcing you, and keep in mind, she is divorcing you, with or without your kids, there are only two possible outcomes and both are bad. The first outcome is that something will go wrong in your time together and upset your spouse. These days, it won't take much. Since she can't stand you, she'll get furious and think, that's why I'm divorcing you. And she might even say that. The second outcome, which frankly is even worse, is that everything will go well. This will not make her think that maybe she shouldn't divorce you. She'll think, see, divorce is no big deal. We're all getting along great, and we'll get along great after the divorce too. You don't want her thinking that. People tend to think, boy, if we have a great time as a couple, great time as a family, that'll make her think, I shouldn't divorce Bob. No, it won't. It'll make her think I'm doing the right thing by divorcing Bob because we're getting along so well. Remember, she's already made the decision to divorce you. I urge actually, no time together as a couple or as a family. Hold to this boundary until your spouse suspends the divorce and is sincerely willing to work on the marriage. We're not even close to that at this point in the process. No meals together at home or in a restaurant. No dates with your spouse. No family activities at all. I wouldn't stand by your spouse in the front yard while your kids are playing. At the kids' events, you will sit separate from your spouse. All birthdays are separate. All holidays are separate. Don't sit with her in church. You'll be leaving your church anyway. More on this later. Don't sit with her anywhere. Do not ride with her in a car. Does this sound extreme? It is not extreme. No private conversations with your spouse. Only talk via text, email, or phone about the kids, schedules, money, and emergencies. Everything is separate. That's divorce. In addition to avoiding the two bad outcomes I mentioned earlier, you are showing your divorce-minded spouse what divorce means. Let's hope she doesn't like it. Don't number 2. Don't talk to her family and friends. This is a classic mistake that's very easy to make. Here's the distorted thinking that causes this mistake. I'll talk to those closest to her and ask them to talk her out of the divorce, to give me another chance. She won't listen to me, but she will listen to them since she's close to them. Also, maybe they will tell me how she feels and what's going on in her mind. Bad, bad, bad. Dumb, dumb, dumb. Who do you think her family and close friends will side with in this crisis? They'll all side with her, never ever with you. Guess what? They hate you too, because you hurt someone they dearly love. Your conversations with her family and friends will make you look like a pathetic spouse attempting to control and manipulate to win their support, which is what you are doing if you talk to them. When your conversations with them are over, they will immediately call or text your spouse to tell her what a pathetic, controlling manipulator you are. You lose. Don't talk to her family members. Don't talk to her close friends. Don't talk to her neighbors. If you say anything to her inner circle in this first phase, make it a one-time statement. I'm wrong. I'm to blame for our marital problems. I have hurt her deeply, and that is why she wants to divorce me. I'm working to change myself. With God's help, I hope and pray that in time I can win her back. That's it. It will take at least 3 months, probably closer to 5, for you to demonstrate clear and consistent change. It may take longer. When you have done this, you will ask a few of your key supporters to reach out carefully to your spouse. But this happens in phase 3. We are not there yet. We're nowhere near there yet. And when we do get there, it won't be her family or close friends you ask to talk to her. Leave them alone. Number 3, don't pursue her. Don't send her flowers. Don't send her candy. Don't send her any gifts. Don't ask her for any dates. That will make her feel pressured and even insulted. She does not want to be pursued. She wants you to go away and leave her alone. Drop all methods of romantic pursuit immediately. This is part of giving her space. You are not a romantic partner, at least for now. Don't say I love you. She'll find it annoying and insulting because she doesn't believe it. Don't ask her, do you love me? Men tend to ask this repeatedly in a misguided attempt to get reassurance. All you'll get is a stick in the eye. Asking this makes you look incredibly weak. It is probably the dumbest question in the world anyway because you know the answer. It's no 1,000 times no. Don't ask her, will you forgive me? She is far from forgiving you, and you haven't even yet proven you are truly sorry for your sinful behavior. Don't try to be affectionate. Don't touch her at all in this phase. Don't try to get her to talk about the marriage. Don't try to get her to talk about why she is divorcing you. You've lost the right to talk to her about anything except the kids, money, and emergencies. Now, if she reaches out to you and wants to communicate, fine. Let her be the one to initiate this. Of course, she won't do this for a while. And number 4, don't push for couple counseling. This may surprise you because almost every pastor, almost every Christian counselor will say, well, yeah, if your spouse is divorcing you, I'd be happy to see you in counseling. Bad idea. And this is from a clinical psychologist, a Christian clinical psychologist. It's not time for that yet. In phase 1, which is where we are, it is too soon, far too soon, for any form of couple counseling. Even if she is willing or even suggests it, which almost certainly won't happen, to do this is a mistake. In phase 1 and phase 2, your priority is to work on yourself. Your spouse must see that this is happening. This will involve attending several groups and include personal counseling. You need to get spiritually and emotionally healthy and prove it to your spouse before you can even consider marital counseling. We hope she also goes to personal counseling to heal from your actions and begin to forgive you. This is up to her. If she does voluntarily sit down with you and a counselor in phase 1, I'll tell you what she'll do. She'll rattle off a long list of your sins, all true statements, by the way, and make a very strong case for why she's divorcing you. She has no desire at all to work on healing the marriage. She'll state her reasons for divorcing you to the counselor and will not consider any scenario in which she stays married to you. She'll simply confirm her intention to divorce and will never return to marital counseling. You lose. If you get a judge to court order her to attend several sessions of marital counseling, it's worse than a waste of time. Frankly, I refuse to see cases like this because I know what happens. She will be beyond angry at being coerced into a counselor's office. She'll be further convinced you don't get it. The marriage did not self-destruct. You caused the split. Why do marital counseling? If she wants anything, it is to see you want to change and to see you change, not to work on a damaged marriage. For these same reasons, do not sit down in a meeting with her and your pastor. It's another mistake. It seems to make logical sense, but it's not. It's not a good idea. She'll make her statements about your sinful behavior and her decision to divorce, and that'll be it. It's far too soon for a meeting like this, and frankly, it puts your pastor in an awkward spot. Urge your pastor to support your wife in her pain and to not recommend marital counseling to her. In fact, you will never ask him to recommend marital counseling to her. Until we get to phase 3, ask no one to talk to her about stopping the divorce and getting into marriage counseling. If we can get her to voluntarily, keyword voluntarily agree to couple counseling, that will occur in phase 3. At that point, these things will be true. You will have proven to her real spiritual and emotional and relational change. She will have suspended the divorce process. She will feel as though there's a chance for your marriage to recover, and she'll freely choose to do couple counseling. This is the only way this will work. By avoiding these big mistakes, you take a huge step toward avoiding divorce. Now, one more I want to throw in. And there's a section on this in the book. Never, ever squeeze her financially. I've had some boneheads in my office, men, they've lost their wife. She's divorcing her, the man, and for good reason, frankly. And they say, you know what? I'm getting the money out of her account. I'm going to squeeze her. I'm going to force her. I'm going to give her a taste of divorce, and she'll want me back. I said, you are an absolute bonehead, a gooberhead. Don't do that. In fact, you support her as fully financially as you possibly can. Now, the basics, you're not going to spend on lavish trips and things that are out of hand, but you have to support her and your children through this entire separation. Never, ever squeeze her financially. That's what idiots do, and idiots get divorced. All right. Now that I've covered some key don'ts, in the next podcast, as we continue this series on I Destroyed My Marriage, my brand new book, there are 3 things I want you to do immediately that will make, I think, a tremendous difference. So until then, stay tuned.